Welcome to Truth Quest. If you are striving to balance earthly challenges with a heavenly perspective in areas like business, family, relationships, money, and personal growth, you have found your community. Welcome back to Truth Quest, where we are looking into all the hard truths, just trying to find out how do we keep a heavenly perspective when our feet are planted so hard on the ground. So we just reach out and talk to different people about their walk and what God is teaching them or has taught them so that we can let iron sharpen iron. And today I've got some amazing guests, very dear to my heart, Josh and Haley. Tell people a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, so we have been married now about 6 years.
Six and a half. Who's counting?
Give her half.
Yes, so 6.5 years now. And pretty much for that whole time, we've been involved in some type of ministry together. When we were teenagers and we were dating, we went on mission trips together. And that's about the time that we started volunteering with Royal Family Kids Camp, which we'll get to talking about here in a little bit.
Great.
Well, yeah, and so we've just been having the awesome opportunity to serve together as a couple for a long time, even since we were,
Well, you were high school sweethearts.
Yes,
right?
we were.
Yeah, we were 15.
Well, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it took me a little convincing, but by the time we were 16, it
I
was
don't
official.
think you're convinced
gently.
yet. She's still working on that convincing.
It's great. And so
Don't get cocky, Josh.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I remember that. I started dating officially at 16, and when we were 19, we went off to college together in Minnesota. We spent about 5.5 years in Minnesota, and a year, like right in the middle of that, a year and a half of that, we spent overseas in Slovenia on an overseas internship with our school. So we went to school to, it was like a really small Christian college in Minnesota. It was a missionary college, and we spent about a year and a half overseas in Slovenia and got to be a part of some really, really awesome things.
Yeah, you did.
And yeah, so I mean, Josh got to be a part of this really cool initiative to create a worship album, the second worship album in the language of Slovenia. So I don't know if you want to share about that.
Yeah, so it was 2020, the year.
Oh,
so
the year.
Yeah. We all know.
So we got there 2019, all was dandy in the fall, and we were just getting ready for what 2020 had in store. And then come 2020, March comes around, we go into lockdown, and we're like, oh shoot. Our job here is ministry, which literally is people. And so we are now forbade from being
Forbidden.
with people. Yes, sure, thank you. Yeah, from being with people. And so we were trying to figure out what are some ways that we can still be effective, ways that we can do ministry. Well, one of the guys at the church had a studio there that he and another guy kind of co-ran. And so we utilized our time by being a little bubble in there together, doing all the music. And then we brought in safely people from all over the country to be together. So we had the Big C church being a part of making this happen. And so it was just a really cool opportunity that I don't think we would have done or had if it weren't for 2020. And Haley actually sung on it on a couple songs. So.
It's the only time you'll ever hear me sing, I think.
It's in another language.
It's in another language.
Yeah.
Can people still get that?
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky. You can access it on that church's ministry website. We kind of ran into some licensing issues because not all of the songs in there are originals, and so it was never published on all platforms just because we ran into some of the licensing issues. So
yeah. Can I put the link with this podcast?
Yes, I will get that to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just any links you have. You've done other music.
Yes.
You can find on Spotify if you're interested.
Yes, I have a instrumental, I don't know if you call it rock, whatever, instrumental band called Rad for Sure. That's Rad and then comma and then for sure. and yeah, so we put out an album 2023? I
think it's 2022.
2022.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I know that I thoroughly enjoy any time that I get an opportunity to sing with you.
yes,
You are a very gifted
Likewise.
musician.
likewise. So it's always fun. I remember
It is.
singing in a cafe with you in Tibet. And,
Yes.
yeah, singing
Yes.
jazz tunes. That was fun.
And yeah, and then we got in trouble for that because there was a few that weren't just jazz.
Yeah, we don't talk
Jesus
about
in
that.
No, we
yeah.
don't talk about that. No. Okay. So, man, you guys have had a full journey in a very short amount of time.
Yes,
And now you're back in Alaska
correct.
after being all over the world. What brought you back?
Couple of things. So we thought that we were supposed to be in Minnesota for a while, and then all of a sudden I get laid off. So I graduated from the university we came from. It was called Bethany Global University, and it seemed like that's where I was supposed to be for a while, and so I got hired on. And I got to work with the students that were raising support to go overseas, and so I was the partnership development coordinator. So I worked with them and coaching them as they were raising their support. And just what the Lord had for us there, it seemed like we were supposed to be there for a while, and then I got nixed due to some budget cuts.
Right.
And so then at that time, Haley and I were like, okay, what are we supposed to do? So then we were seeking the Lord's guidance on, like, do we stay? Do we go? And it kind of boiled down to a few different things. It was stay, it was move back to Slovenia long term, or move back to Alaska.
And it was kind of cool. I mean, unfortunate you were laid off. I mean, it seemed unfortunate at the time, but it was kind of cool because the following week we had a trip planned to Alaska, and then 2 weeks after that we had a trip planned to Slovenia. And so it was these two places that are so dear to our hearts that we know that the Lord has used greatly, and kind of always could envision a future in either in Alaska or Slovenia. And it was kind of cool that that month we had trips planned to both of these places. And so that whole month was just spent seeing people and places that we loved and praying and asking the Lord for wisdom and what he would have us do. And ultimately, while we were in Slovenia, we were at this little cafe in the city center, Ljubljana, and we were having coffee alongside the river. And we kind of just looked at each other and we were like, man, like what we're doing here in Slovenia is so awesome. And we're so grateful that the Lord let us be a part of so many things. And I know Slovenia will always, kind of be in our life, and we hope to come back, but we kind of just looked at each other and we're like, I think it's Alaska. And I know for both of us, since we were in high school, Josh kind of mentioned we've been volunteering with Royal Family Kids Camp. We knew that there were some big changes coming up, and knew that fostering had always kind of been on our hearts. And that kind of felt like, okay, kind of one of the big pulls for us towards Alaska is maybe it's time. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like the Lord speaks to us like years. I mean, sometimes he gives us little hints about what's to come, but not for a while. Like, not for a while. I feel like he's always kind of spoken to me that way. Like, and so I always knew like Royal Family Kids Camp and fostering would be a bigger part of our future. I just didn't know when or how, or like how we'd get there.
Or what it would look like.
What it would look like, and all the things in between. And so anyways, I think that's kind of, we looked at each other and kind of just knew that was going to be the next step. And so it was on that little riverside cafe we decided we'd come back to Alaska, and we moved back about 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's so good to be home. I miss the mountains.
So a lot of changes, a lot of traveling, a lot of moving around.
Yes.
What was the biggest struggle?
I think saying goodbye.
Yeah.
We when
You
we just
had to get good at it.
when we decided to move back home to Alaska, we looked at each other and kind of just said, I think this is the last time for a while that we want to say goodbye to people, because I mean, in any, like, as a Christian, I mean, it's so great that we are part of the Big C Church. Everywhere you go, you can find your community, your family, be a part of your body, and be a part of the body, and that's such a wonderful thing. And you invest time and you engage with the people around you, and you develop relationships, and it's such a wonderful thing, but it's so hard to say goodbye. And I just kind of felt like while we're so grateful for all the experiences of all the places we lived and people we got to be with and just commune with, we realized it was getting really hard to just keep saying goodbye, and that we were really kind of craving a time in our lives where we could be fully invested in the community and pouring into one community, kind of knowing that we were going to be there for a while, really build something. And so I think for me, that was probably one of the hardest things, is I just felt like our life was just becoming a lot of series of goodbyes. And so there's so many wonderful things in that, but a little bit hard too.
Yeah, I'd say the same.
Yeah.
It was just pretty much since we had graduated high school, our life together consisted of multiple times of just saying goodbye to people.
Right.
Yeah. And so we're...
In the goodbyes, though, there was also the new adventures.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
right?
so true.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, I'm so sad. This is awesome. I'm so sad.
Very bittersweet.
Yes.
thing.
You're on a roller coaster.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely bittersweet.
So now you work in emergency services now.
Yep. Yeah. I work for Matanuska-Susitna Valley Emergency Medical Services. This is my first job in this career. I love it so much. It's if anyone is interested in working in emergency medical services, I would definitely suggest that if you can, like, find it in your heart to care a lot about social wellness and mental health. That is probably the biggest thing I've learned is while the medicine is clearly a huge part of it. There's a big part of it where you're really, you're in it with people in some of their darkest and hardest times, and a lot. I would say 50% of what we do is therapeutic and emotional support in these situations for our patients or our family members. And
interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, so I've had some young people ask me like, I'm interested in being an EMT or a paramedic. What would you suggest? And I've always kind of say like, like if you have a heart for mental health and serving people, then could be a great job for you. But if you're not really interested in working with people going through a lot of mental health challenges alongside maybe some physical illness or ailment, it can be a really hard job. You can get I think burned out really fast if you don't have a desire to work with people and see people in those times. So
I would tell you that for me, when I see you guys out on a call, it does prompt prayer, but it's like you are being the hands and feet of Jesus, because that's what he did. He reached out, physical, mental, emotional, and he reached out and showed love.
yeah, he did. Yep.
So thank you for what you do. I appreciate you.
I feel very, very, very privileged to do this.
Yeah. And Josh, you wound up coming back to a place that you actually led worship as a teenager.
That is
Right?
correct. So the year is 2016, and my parents had just left Alaska, and I stayed. Also, Haley went off to YWAM at the same time. So here's this massive change, all this stuff happening, and I'm kind of on my own up here a little bit. And so luckily, after I graduated high school, I was just looking for a summer job, saving up for college. And so there was a coffee shop that's no longer around called 1200. And so I started working there as a barista. And it just so happened that it was owned and operated by Rabbit Creek Church, which is where I work now as the minister of worship. And I started getting in touch with some of the people there at the church through just the people I ran into there. But then also at the end of 2016, I believe, is when they started their second campus, their Huffman campus. That was what we called it, because it's kind of on the corner of Old Seward and Huffman. So we called it our Huffman campus. And so I started over there.
Original.
Yeah. well, I'll raise you one. The name 1200 came from literally the address. It was the building's address. And so, yeah, it's easy to remember.
Works.
Easy to remember. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's just cool to be back at the church that was kind of a comfort, safe place for me when amidst a ton of change. When I was, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Now I'm primarily physically usually at the main campus, the Hillside campus primarily, but I'm over the worship ministries at both campuses. So yeah,
Very cool.
yeah,
I was privileged to be there the night that you were ordained, and your parents came up.
yeah,
It was a beautiful night. It
Yeah.
was a beautiful night. We were all so proud of you and cried, and we did the parent thing.
yeah. Thank you again for coming. It was awesome to have you guys there.
Yeah, thanks for making me cry. Yeah, I don't do that very often. Okay, let's talk about Royal Family Kids Camp. This is obviously something that is near and dear to your heart. You started there in high school,
Yes.
volunteering.
Yep. Yeah. So my youth leader, Ami, and shout out to Bob Jones. We all know Bob Jones. He he was one of the elders at our churches. Him and Ami were involved in Royal Family Kids Camp at the time. And that summer, I think for me it was 2015, really encouraged me to come volunteer at Royal Family Kids Camp. And I had some other friends doing it. And so I started out as one of our assistant counselors. I was under 18 it would have been 16 or 17 that year. And so I volunteered, and it kind of was just one of those things where like, oh, I'm going to come back every year pretty much. Like at the end of the week, I kind of just knew that this is something I wanted to do every summer. Royal Family Kids Camp is a week-long camp in the great state of Alaska. We actually have a mother organization called For the Children, and they have chapters all over the country and even in some different countries. But
oh, really?
Yeah, so we've
UK
got some.
now, right?
Yeah, the UK, Brazil, and I mean certainly more countries than that. I can't think of off the top of my head. But
It's okay. I didn't tell you there would be a test.
That's right.
I didn't study.
Do you know the answers? And so that was my first year volunteering, and I think I roped Josh in later the next year. But it's a wonderful week-long camp. Chris Scott started the Royal Family Anchorage chapter in 2005, and so pretty much since 2005, there's been a Royal Family Kids Camp in Anchorage or in Alaska every single summer, with the exception of 2020. But the directors that year were still able to make some things happen and reach out to some foster kids. But Royal Family Kids Camp is a week-long camp for kids who are in foster care in the state of for us it's in the state of Alaska. It is a week where we get to shower them with love, adoration, teach them about the love of Jesus. Every year there's a different theme. And so this last year we had our wonderfully and uniquely made. And so we get to do so many different things during the week of camp. We have lake time and a special time. Like really it's just a week of kids getting to explore things they want to do and like to do, where they are getting a lot of one-on-one attention from staff and other volunteers. And something that I love. For me, I think one of the greatest reasons Royal Family exists is kids can come to camp and their foster parents or guardians don't get a call in the middle of the week saying, hey, they need to go home. Like they're not behaving or they're struggling with this. And so, due to just a lot of the backgrounds of some of these kids, they may have certain behaviors or different things that they are, really struggling with that in in a camp setting, maybe with, more focused or less focused on, kids with behavioral challenges. A lot of times they get sent home throughout the week or, I don't know. And so that's something that I think Royal Family really reaches those kids that there's not really sometimes I feel like they fall through the cracks.
Right.
Sometimes there's not
a lane
spaces
for them.
There's not a lane for them or doesn't feel like there's spaces for them. And so Royal Family kind of bridges that gap and makes spaces for them.
Yeah, and I would add to that, one of our mottos, I guess, that we say is to make moments matter. And a lot of these kids up to this point have had many adverse childhood experiences.
Right.
And we believe in the power of the combination, the teamwork of showing the love of Jesus and positive childhood experiences. And so that's one of the goals of this week is to make moments matter with each one of those kids so that they have something to look back on and hopefully, make a change.
Yeah. I mean, you guys do some pretty cool things. I mean, they're given like backpacks. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, we do one big birthday party midway through the week, and
Some of these kids have never had a birthday party, have they?
Every
Correct, yeah.
single year we hear from at least one kiddo, usually more. I've never had my own birthday party. I've never had my own cake. We have an awesome cake decorating team that makes individual cakes for each child and paints their face on them. And it's so cool. I mean, so many hands go into the whole week of camp. But yeah, so they each get their own cake, and at the end of the night, we give them a backpack that has just different toys. It has an MP3 player that has all the camp songs on them, and so it's so funny. The night they get this, they go back to their cabins, get ready for bed, and you kind of go into the cabins, and every kid has the MP3 player with a different song going, and they're all singing different songs at the same time. But it's so awesome.
Make a beautiful noise.
Yes, exactly.
It is a joyful noise. That is correct.
Noise.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah.
We get we have lake time. We've got an activity center full of lots of different activities, woodworking, archery. Some other things we do is we invite local first responders to come out, so kids get the opportunity to build some positive interactions with law enforcement and first responders.
Many of them do not have.
Many of them do not have positive experiences, and so our hope is that we can build positive and positive outlook on our first responders. See, we do a talent show, and no talent is too small for our talent show. We have kids who are hula hoopers, we have kids who ride their trikes, we have kids who stand and do nothing. But every
they're getting applause for
they
all
get
of it.
applause for any talent they do.
Exactly.
So it's pretty incredible.
One of my favorite was a kid who his talent was he just got up there and painted a rock, and we were just up there
cheering,
howling and clapping, and he sure painted that rock. Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah,
wow.
It's a really neat, really, really incredible ministry, and I'm so grateful that we get to be a part of it. This last year, every year when the kids arrive at camp, we lay out a red carpet. It's called Royal Family Kids Camp, so we try to, and everything, treat them with royalty. And we lay out a red carpet and have signs and are clapping for them as they come off the bus and meet we call them cousins, our counselors, we call them cousins. They meet their cousins and get settled into their cabins. And within a few minutes, I had started just checking in on everyone in their cabins, making sure they were getting settled in and seeing if anyone needed anything. And a little girl came up to me and she said, "I've only been here for 5 minutes, but I already know this is going to be the best week of my summer." And I was just like, oh man, I think kids just thrive under positive attention and one-on-one attention. And so I think in so many wonderful ways, Royal Family gets to
And if I can add to that, this one-on-one attention that she's talking about, we have a very high staff to camper ratio as one of the things for safety, for accountability, for all of those things. We have for every camper, there are 2 sets of eyes on that camper for 100 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course that includes sleeping. You can't really watch while you're sleeping, but in the waking hours, it's 2 sets of eyes per kids at all times. And so the cabin arrangements are usually like there'll be 2 cousins or counselors, and there'll be 2 kids per cousin. And then usually there's what's called a second cousin, which is one of those under 18 kids who facilitate a lot of the background stuff and making things happen, doing the laundry, all that type of stuff. Right. Who also is there to help out just in case. So there's a very, very high amount of staff to kid ratio at this camp. Yeah.
What a beautiful week. Yeah. I worked at a Bible camp when I was 18. And I did 3 years as full-time ministry there. And we did not have that kind of ratio.
It was unique. Yeah.
They outnumbered me badly. Actually, it was amazing. It was amazing. And I know that the kids that you are reaching out to right now, this is an experience that there is no way that would happen in any other context. I remember when Chris Scott started this up here, and my husband and I were involved as far as doing fundraising and things of that nature. I actually have not been. The one year that I was supposed to go and lead worship, I can't remember. I was sick or something, and I couldn't do it.
We'll have to change that.
Well, there's that. But I do love going to the fund. You have like one big fundraiser.
Yep. Every
Our
April.
Night to Remember is the name of the event. Yeah.
Oh,
Night
man.
to Remember.
Night to Remember, so that you can provide a week to remember.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so good. Hopefully a lifetime, right? A lifetime to remember and a lifetime of good memories. And
Absolutely. We're going to, I don't know when this is actually going to drop. It'll be before your event, I'm sure. And hopefully we'll be able to put a link in there in case anyone wants to participate, or if they just want to donate, they can just donate too, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean it's such a beautiful program, and you're planning to take this. You mentioned that you were even thinking of going into foster care as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so Josh and I have. As of the end of this last year's camp in June, we've officially taken over Royal Family Kids Camp as directors, and so
congratulations!
Thank you. So grateful, very, very grateful. And I had a couple of statistics I wanted to throw out. We since Chris Scott started Royal Family Kids Camp in 2005, or excuse me, 2005. We served 1,131 kids, and we've had over 1,300 full-time volunteers, but that's not to mention all the thousands of other hands that have gone into making camp happen. And so if you're listening, you should come be a part of our number, growing that number of volunteers that serve kids at Royal Family Kids Camp, or even just some of the hands that just come together to make it happen. But this last year after camp, Josh and I officially took over as directors. We're very excited and really feel strongly that the Lord is going to do some awesome things as he has done in this ministry for the last 20 years. And we're so excited. And on top of that, we just received our own foster care license and are beginning the process of fostering, which we are both incredibly nervous and excited about. But we know that the Lord has equipped us in some ways, and the ways that we are still growing, and I know that he's along right there with us and providing us with wisdom and
it's been exciting in that one of the things that we've come to ask ourselves is and the Lord is like, Lord, how do you want to family us? How do you want to make us a family? And so there's many ways in that where we've been trying to wrestle through. Is it like through having our own, through adopting, and through just spending time in foster care? And it just kind of seems like it's all of it, and it all has its own purposes and times and all of that. And so right now, it's the thing in front of us is foster care.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that we can dedicate our time to at the moment. Yeah.
I love that. Because whatever you've done to the least of these, right?
Yeah.
What an opportunity. You get opportunities every single day with that to fulfill that.
Yes.
To just love on Jesus through loving on these kids. So I love it. I love it. I love it. I know Jamie's very passionate. She's actually volunteered.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, she's volunteered with Royal Family Kids Camp.
Maybe we can get her back.
So, I'm sure she, yep. Probably you can. If nothing else, she'll be doing check-in and stuff. She loves doing the check-in because she gets to greet them, and she's like, they're so excited.
Oh, so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's so amazing. I'm so excited for this, and for your event, and for the camp, and all the things. So, I would love, once you've had camp this next year, I'd love to have you guys back again and just speak to what happened this year.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure that listeners would like to hear it. But, I'm amazed at how much you guys have done in a short period of time. You're very young, whether you think you are or not, you're very young.
Yeah.
And God has used you both in mighty, mighty ways. I love the way you lean in to him. I used to get your newsletters because we supported you when you were in Slovenia, and I loved them. I loved hearing the personal growth, the spiritual growth, the marital growth. I mean, you guys were amazing. It was fun to watch. And is there certain scriptures that you've really leaned into? Or has it just been, the whole thing?
Yes, always the whole thing. But there are a couple of ones that have been driving us in a certain direction. And one of them is in James 2, I think it's 14 and 15, where it talks about the purest form of religion being taking care of the widows and orphans, and almost a practical theology, of like, how are we supposed to do this Jesus following thing? How are we supposed to do that? Well, an awesome example is taking care of the people in your community. And we don't really use the word orphan much these days, so that we don't really use that term anymore. But the kids who are in these in the system is our word in place of that now.
Absolutely.
But, and then also in the same vein of serving these kids has also been Psalm 139, just this beautiful psalm about being known by God and being beautifully and wonderfully made. And so that's one of the goals with our interactions with these kids is that we hopefully after this time with us that they would know that they're known, that there's a God who knows and loves them, and that he created them uniquely and beautifully. And so those are at least two for me that have been kind of a driving force for the direction that we've been headed as a family. But yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just really quickly read Psalm 27:4. It's one of the verses we read at our wedding, and something that I say as well, just in our marriage and our life, has just propelled us. And it's kind of what our heart cry would be. And it's, one thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. And I think that really just kind of encapsulates our heart, which is ultimately, I mean, what motivates us, what our heart cry is, and that's just to seek and know the Lord, and to sit in his beauty and to know him and know that we are also known by him. And so I would say, I think that's the verse that I think has been with us from the beginning.
I love that. I love it. Well done, good and faithful servants. And you've just begun. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. I so appreciate you guys.
Thank you
I so appreciate you.
Thank you.
And for those of you listening, please be sure to check below. We're going to put as many links as we can find for Josh's music, for the Royal Family Kids Camp, for donations, all the things. And please be sure and like and subscribe.
You're doing great.
I know. I know. Jamie gets on me. She's not here.
Smash that like button.
So join us next time. Until then, keep looking for that hard truth. And while you're doing it, sprinkle a little grace, even if a little is all you've got. As we conclude this episode of Truth Quest, we invite you to be a part of the conversation. Send in your questions, thoughts, and reflections. Don't forget, like, follow, and subscribe to stay updated on our journey together. Until next time, may you continue to seek truth with courage, and remember to sprinkle a little grace, even if that's all you've got.